Hello, YouTube. Am I wearing a baller shirt? Yes.
Are we doing the
What?
Pac-12 preview? Yes.
Yes. Like, enjoy, subscribe. And if you do that, I won't allow Jack to talk for 5 minutes in the next show.
Katie's holding big cans.
Not mine.
Okay. Relax. There you go. Watch, enjoy. How many states have you been to, Casey?
I don't know that answer. I can figure it out after the podcast, but a good
You
amount of
don't
them.
keep up-
I don't.
Is he recording?
Yeah, we're on.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep up with mine. I'm at 30, 31 or 32, I think.
Do you
30,
count states that you had like flight layovers in?
Oh.
No.
In Minnesota,
that's a good question.
I once laid over at St. Paul to go to somewhere else, and I do not count Minnesota. It's the only
So
time
you
I've ever
have
been
to
there.
purposely go to that place.
Now, I do think if you're driving from somewhere to somewhere and you drive through a place, I think that counts.
No.
Why does that count if a layover doesn't count?
You have to spend a day there or do something there. If you stop while you're driving through and you go to something that's there, either food or maybe a site, that counts. But
So if it's a stop on the road trip that you actually like get out, not just get gas, like you actually go and like sit down somewhere.
It's you're going through the state of Missouri and you are saying, "Oh, I've never been here. I want to go to the gate or
the arch."
The arch.
Yeah.
Or you want to go to a specific museum in Wyoming. That's
okay.
You've been there.
Okay, well, I just lost a state then, so I'm down to 30 because I lost Delaware. I've only driven through Delaware, didn't get out. So
that's an interesting thing. I feel like I've done like the outline of it. Like I feel like I've gone every state from the top of the West Coast all the way down the South and then all the way up. I think it's the in the middle states I haven't been to.
yeah, I'm at 30 in the heartlands. Well, the heartland's lacking. Like I don't have Kansas, I don't have Oklahoma.
You've never been to Oklahoma? That surprises me.
I don't have Utah. I don't have. I guess I got Nevada. I don't have Idaho. I don't have Montana. I don't have. You know what the weirdest one is that you would think? I don't have Arkansas. I've never been to Arkansas in my life, and it's right by Mississippi. I've never been to Arkansas.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I would think that you have been to every SEC state.
Remember, I said I've been to 11 of the 14. One of the ones, Missouri, I haven't been to. Arkansas, and then another one. Oh, I haven't been to A&M. I've been to Texas.
You've been to Texas, right? You've been to Texas. Not going to the stadiums is one thing, but you accidentally not going to Arkansas for one thing in 40 years of your life is strange.
I'm fine with it.
Arkansas is actually very pretty. Like where Fayetteville is gorgeous.
Well, part of Arkansas is pretty. Like the part that borders Mississippi, not pretty. Just like that part of Mississippi isn't pretty. But Northwest Arkansas, I hear, is fucking fantastic.
Beautiful.
I have several friends from high school that live up there, and they say it's beautiful.
Yeah, the first time I ever went to Fayetteville, I feel like an asshole for saying this, but I was shocked at how pretty it was.
All right, Jack, you don't want to weigh in on the states?
I haven't been to. I probably among everyone here have been to the lowest. I haven't been to many states. I could probably name them off the top of my head. But it's not that interesting. So that's why I didn't weigh into that one because I just haven't been to that
You're an
many.
East Coast elitist.
I've been to pretty much every New England state, Florida.
What about the West Coast?
California, Wyoming, Idaho.
Well, that's more than I would have expected based on the way you talked.
And then I've been to Georgia.
Have you been to Texas?
I've never been to Texas.
Wow.
And I also didn't want to bring it up because it would just be another reminder to this East Coast Yankees talking about college football. So I just usually sit these ones out.
But you can still watch TV. Turns out you can watch college football games.
I can. Oh, I've been to Detroit, Michigan for the Motor City Bowl.
Of course you've been to Detroit, Michigan. It would be there.
And I've been to Charlotte, North Carolina for the Meineke Car Care Bowl between UConn and Wake Forest. So those are two other ones I've been to.
Katie, when you were at North Carolina, did you travel all over the place?
Not that much. It's really
rowing?
Yeah, Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Durham.
You're just naming cities.
Yeah.
We're talking about states.
No,
UNC other states?
Sorry, I thought she meant within the state. My mind.
No, he just tried to say UNC in other states. Like he made a very bad dad joke.
Because you went to UNC.
Florida, Princeton. That's kind of it. We don't really travel that much, just up and down the East Coast.
You're not naming states.
New Jersey.
Okay.
There you go.
She said Florida. Florida's a state.
Kinda. All right. Are y'all ready?
So ready.
So ready.
You know what, Jack? I don't like your body language today. I don't know how ready you are.
He's ready.
Yeah, what?
He's always like that.
You want me to put my feet down? Does this change it?
Remember whenever we was it in this when Jack used to sit like this and people were always openly admitting they were just looking at his junk?
I don't think that was me.
It wasn't you
No.
on the podcast?
I think that might have been your other job, Casey. I don't think that was.
I don't think that was me.
You didn't ever man spread on this show?
There was one where Brandon pulled out was like, man, you just went thighs out today.
But I feel like there was maybe like a small time where you manspread and people were just like, well, Jack's just always manspreading. It's like when people say that, they just are openly admitting they're looking at your crotch.
So possibly, I kind of vaguely remember it.
You know what? That's a sad thing that I remember that. So can we just move on?
Yeah, I'm ready to move. I've been ready to move on since we ended the state.
He's right. Probably the worst conversation that's ever been had on the show, to be honest.
Well,
I said let's move on.
I was ready to move on without saying anything about the states, and then Brandon was like, "Oh, you don't want to talk, huh?"
Just trying to get you out of your shell, buddy.
Thank you. I'm ready.
This is the epitome of they don't talk about football for 25 minutes. Go.
Let's talk about football.
Let's do it.
Hi, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football show.
Presented by High Noon Hard Seltzer. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can see that normally we have 2 packs in front of us. Katie brought in the big cans today. We have 2 of
big
the
ones,
the tall cans. She's got them in her hands. You can see how big they are. Look at how small her hands look on that, folks.
I realized that to bring it into the box, I think, so make sure they can see it.
I mean, look at that. It's bigger than her head. She's got the peach tall cans.
And when you look at those, you can reseal them.
Which is key because if you have these on the beach, and if you haven't had them on the beach and you're going to the beach, get High Noon to go to the beach. You know how annoying it is whenever you set a drink down onto the sand and it falls over and then it spills out and it's cold and you're like, shit, we only brought so many. Not with these.
Same with tailgating.
Yes.
Maybe you're on a grass. Everybody's tailgating setup's different, but you can put it down and then you come back. Somebody hit it over by accident, and yeah,
it's still there on a boat. Really, anywhere you want to be able to reseal it. That's the key with these, and because they are so big, they need to be resealed. Because you're going to keep drinking it and drinking it and drinking it. The pool pack is the limited edition. We're getting closer and closer to college football, thank God, which means the summer is coming to an end, which means the pool pack limited edition will be out of stores soon. Go to Drizzly, go to the liquor store, convenience store, highnoonsunsips.com. You know the drill.
You know it.
You know the drill.
You know the drill.
The tequila, the game day pack, not tailgate pack, game day pack.
Yes.
That's coming soon. We love High Noon. And Brandon, college football.
Yeah,
coming quick.
Again, I just like to say to High Noon, I apologize, and I was just having a shitty day and trying to be a jerk that day. So you have a wonderful drink, an incredible drink, and thank you for being this podcast sponsor. So I will move on very quickly. But again, apologies to them. They are the best. Okay, college football. Are y'all ready?
I am so ready.
Good. So I realized we need to do a couple of little show maintenance things before we go further, because as I was talking about the states, I realized that one of our recurring episodes this time every year is put together our perfect college football road trip, and we haven't done that yet.
Oh, we have not. And I do enjoy doing that.
So we got to put together our big time college football road trip very soon, whether that's next week or the week after. I mean, I guess this show right here is the last show that's not inside of football week, because week 0 starts Monday.
Yeah, I was talking to Katie about just traveling dates, and I was like, okay, so not this week, but the week after, next week. And I just put it all together, realizing we're doing the college football show in like 2 weeks, which is huge, big time.
Week 0 to me, and we're going to get into it next week. This one, it's always not great. This one's particularly bad. This is a bad week 0. They got one. I think Notre Dame and Navy play at like 1:30, but there's not another game. It's like 5 o'clock. It's a weird schedule.
It's not great, but you and I both know that when you sit down on Saturday morning to get ready for it, you're going to be so hyped, and everything that happens on week 0 Saturday is going to be a big deal. I know that the games aren't marquee at all, but you know it's going to be a big deal. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame as if they're going to win the national title by the time that game's over.
You remember when early last year in week 0, Nebraska was going to win the national title and their quarterback was going to win the Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was I still think about that drive to this day.
It was so impressive.
It was fantastic.
I think it was just, and man, you know what's funny too? That was the last week 0 was the last win Pat Fitzgerald had as Northwestern's head coach. So week 0 always gives us something. You're right.
Oh yeah, no, Notre Dame. I'm telling you that. I mean, and I know you're really high on Notre Dame, Brandon. I listened to your spaces the other day. I know that you're very bullish on them. A lot of people are, but I'm telling you, no fail, Twitter will have named them the national champion by 3 o'clock on that Saturday.
Because Twitter doesn't like Notre Dame.
But
Twitter is unfair. Twitter is unfair to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And they are playing Navy. No disrespect to the
Twitter
troops,
judges Notre Dame differently than Twitter judges other teams.
Yeah, no, people hate, and they historically say that Notre Dame doesn't play anybody, which isn't true. They play USC every year. They historically played Michigan every year. They've historically played a really hard schedule. They put Clemson on their schedule. I know it's the ACC deal, but they play
Ohio State this year.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule this year is very difficult. And even in the past, they were like, oh, they've played nobody.
I will
they
say
play
I've been
Stanford
unfair
every year, and Stanford is a team that I know they're kind of in a dark age right now, but they were, for 2 decades there, a great team year in, year out, outside of a few years.
I've been unfair to Notre Dame a few times. I know I definitely was last year when they lost to Marshall. But I do think that we'll see like a little, because that's the only game that's really a big marquee name during week 0. I could see that happening.
No, Brandon has a game. It's a very important game for him. It's Vanderbilt, Hawaii. And if Vanderbilt loses to Hawaii, our week 0 recap will be me just yelling about how Vanderbilt, just for some reason, because they beat Florida last year, was given some, oh, wow, they're really turning around. No, they stink. They stink out loud.
The bottom of the basement conversation will be happening again with that, I'm sure.
Speaking of early, I guess they played on week 0 again last year. You remember how Vanderbilt just beat the ever-living piss out of Hawaii? I mean, Vanderbilt looked like they were an all-pro team playing against Hawaii last year, but Hawaii was in the first year their coach had a bunch of nobodies playing for him. So I don't know. I'm already, I'm kind of laying the Vanderbilt in 18, maybe. I think it's 18. Whatever. UConn's not week 0, right? They're week 1.
We're week 1.
You were week 0 last year, right?
Yeah, they almost beat Utah State. Thursday night game against NC State at home.
You were week 0 last year.
That's Thursday.
2 years ago. It got canceled. We have a Florida A&M.
But I feel like
they almost remember like a week before, or like a few days before the game, they like half the team couldn't play because of COVID or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, did you see Darrell Revis and UConn? We're getting into it today on the timeline.
Very much no.
I did not, but
yeah, no. Everyone's talking about it.
They're not.
I'm gonna go pull it up. Darrell, this is really tough for me because obviously as a Jets fan and whatnot, but Darrell Revis really went right at UConn, and I am disgusted that he would ever do that. I'm trying to find the tweet.
Oh, also a little more show maintenance. We got to get Aaron Murray's ass on here.
I invited him on.
We've been.
I know we've been trying. Katie, don't get all freaked out. I'm telling you right now.
No, he said he would come on. I talked to him.
I know that, but I'm saying the reason now, I didn't want him before because he's just Aaron Murray. Who cares about Aaron Murray and Georgia quarterback? Nobody cares about him. But he put out a quarterback list in the SEC that I got to get him on and I got to confront him. Okay,
I'm going to text him right now.
Will Rogers slander's got to stop. It's got to stop.
You didn't have him in your top 10
of the nation. He didn't have him in the top 10 in the SEC.
All right, so
that is crazy.
This is UConn Country, great account at UConnSN. Tweeted out that night at Dan Orlovsky was picking on Darrell Revis. This was the actually first Big East game, home game. It was Thursday night. The rent was packed. And Darrell Revis responded, UConn, stop clout chasing with one clip to say I was picked on. Fuck out of here.
Well, was he picked on that night?
No, this clip was completely out of context, and Darrell Revis was playing zone in the clip that Dan Orlovsky threw just a simple out route that just beat the zone. It wasn't like they beat Darrell Revis.
I love when fans will watch a zone get beat, like a guy run right by, and he's like, man, he ran right by him. This guy, what's he doing? He's doing his job. But anyway, thank God we got the Darrell Revis and UConn stuff out of the way quickly. All right, there was one more show maintenance thing I wanted to do.
We're starting 3 episodes soon?
I got to get Aaron Murray. We're starting 3 episodes in 2 weeks. Oh, I'll be there Monday. Well, so we'll record 2 episodes together. We know that. We all know that together. But we do have to arrange the Barstool full preview where we bring Big Ev in to talk about Ohio State, Travie, and all the Barstool people. So we got to arrange that very soon. Josh Prey texted me out of nowhere. He wants to do it for Florida because apparently Florida fans haven't realized they're going to fucking suck this year.
I was talking to Travie earlier in the office, and I said to him that I was listening to your first Twitter space that you did this week, and before I even heard his voice, when you introduced him, when you brought him on, your voice changed. Your voice went from like the Brandon Walker content to Mississippi Brandon Walker. Like you went more Southern. You got irritated immediately. There's something about him that really brings it out in you.
Because this time of year, everybody's got hope, right? Hope is the number one thing. But Alabama fans, man, and you know what? The media needs to get a little bit of this too. When we didn't talk about it a couple of weeks ago, maybe y'all did because I wasn't here because of COVID. Maybe y'all talked about it. But this idea that Alabama is just going to be great and be in the playoff because they're Alabama. No, you got to show it to me. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Their receivers aren't as good as they used to be. Their defense was very disappointing last year, even though on paper it should have been very good. And the media, I bring them in for this. A couple of weeks ago when Nick Saban left the press conference and he was smiling, and then you got all these quote tweets and saying, oh, my God, Alabama's going to be great. Look at him. Look out for Alabama this year. Nick Saban smiling. Maybe he was just in a good mood. Maybe he was just in a good mood. Maybe he had a good lunch. I don't know. But Nick Saban smiling doesn't equate to 13-0 Alabama.
Also, he talked so glowingly about his team last year, and it did not go to plan. I know there were some very close losses, but this happens all the time. And also, maybe Nick Saban's getting soft. That's what my reaction was.
My reaction is there are certain people out there, and I do feel like it's normally like powerful guys, that if they smile, you do have to wonder what they're smiling about because they don't do it very often. Bill Belichick is one of those guys. Nick Saban is one of those guys. You can go down the list. There are, I mean, if Dave Portnoy has a certain smile on his face, you're like, uh-oh, something's coming.
But he may have been, it was a photo. Like, someone may have told the joke.
Nick Saban is also a 70-year-old man. He's just trying to get into heaven at this point. He's smiling more. What do you want to do?
Oh, come on. You know that's not true. He's already in heaven with Miss Terry.
I don't think it's a guarantee that, oh my God, Nick Saban's smiling. Look out, Tennessee.
No,
look out.
but he is one of those guys that you do have to wonder why he's smiling. I'm not saying that means they're going to go 13-0, but it is bizarre to see him smiling when he knows cameras are around. I'm sure he smiles a ton when his grandkids are around.
Football coaches are human. It's August. Like they haven't gotten into guess what? Football coaches smile occasionally. Like that happens.
It is true. But he does it the least amount, it seems.
I don't know. I don't think he's like a curmudgeon. No, he's not as curmudgeonly as his reputation is.
No, he's not. And he's very nice, and he's Nick Saban. He can do whatever he wants. But no, I agree with you. And in all the coaches meetings, you know, and again, it's like, talk about your coaches meetings again. But like, I enjoyed meeting with him a lot. He was always very, very nice to everybody around, which surprised me. I thought he'd be a dickhead.
I want to talk about one thing real quick, and I guess we can't pull up the video, but I wish we could. The other day when the 5-star defensive lineman from Missouri committed to Missouri released video of their watch party. Eli Drinkwitz was right there with all his coaches. And I don't know, you talk about smiling. Is that a good sign for your coach? The guy committed, Eli Drinkwitz stands up and yells, and then he jumps into another man's arms and like raises his feet up like a girl in a movie. Like wearing a sundress and gets spun around. Like he has this like schoolgirl reaction. Like, I'm not sure I want that from my coach.
Well, I brought it up last show after you said that Eli Drinkwitz got the commitment from him. He's always had those reactions. He had it when they got a 3-star on National Signing Day a few years ago. Mizzou fans love quote tweeting that from our account. That's kind of how he operates. He's a very emotional guy. And you are right. It's not it's kind of green line test-esque. It's like I want you to be a little bit more masculine than that. Your masculine energy is what's going to win football games. I don't want a guy who's doing that. I kind of agree. Way too beta for me. I'll get out there. I mean, we should have known that. His name's Elijah. Like, who's the last Elijah that did anything successful outside of the Bible?
Almost certainly he's in the Bible.
I know. But I said you didn't let me finish. I said outside the Bible.
The
There's
curling
nothing outside of the Bible, Jack.
the curling the feet up is quite a move. It is a very like rom-com move.
Exactly. Sixpence None the Richer could have been singing a song at that point. There he goes, like that. That's what I was thinking when it happened. I'm going to throw a little topic to you guys that you are not planning on. But I know we've covered a couple of conferences. We'll hit the Pac-12 today. We've already done the ACC, the Big 12. Pac-12 is today in just a second. And then when we're in person, that's when we're going to hammer out Big 10 and SEC because we think those are going to be the most the most entertaining probably because, boy, I tell you what, the SEC's – I got a lot of takes about the SEC. Anyway, I put out this tweet yesterday. 5 college football teams will be better than people think in 2023. I put Kentucky, Wisconsin, Texas Tech, Iowa, and Mississippi State. Now, I didn't ask you to prepare 5. You're not going to prepare 5. But if I had to ask you the question, Casey, Jack, Katie, name a team anywhere in this country that you think will be better than everybody else thinks this year.
Go ahead, Jack. I didn't know what order you want to go in, but I mean, off the top of my – see, I don't want to give away my Pac-12 surprising team, so I'm very Pac-12 oriented right now. I think
we're doing the Pac-12 episode today, so you're not actually giving anything away. You can just say it.
That's a good point. This is not because it's a chalk answer. This is not because of our relationship. I think Colorado is going to be better than people think. I am taking their total over. I do not understand, 3.5 wins, and I realize that their schedule is tough, but I don't think people realize how different that team is going to look, not just because Deion is the head coach, not just because his son is the quarterback. This is an entirely new team, entirely new system, and I think they're going to be better than people anticipate because I think people are assuming Deion walked into Boulder and brought his son with him, and the whole team is going to be the way that it's been the last 3 or 4 years, and that's just not what's happening.
Jackie?
Yeah. I keep going back and forth. I mean, I think Miami's a really, really great answer.
I had them on my secondary answer with Missouri.
And then I also think you could even get into a little bit, like I think Florida may not be that bad. I'm glad you brought that up. I want to have a Florida discussion. Go ahead and finish your take, though. And then I think Auburn's up there too. They may
Auburn's a good one.
But these are teams that I probably rely too much heavily on talent. So
if I had to pick a week 1 upset right now, that Florida-Utah game looks juicy.
Yeah, and
we don't know if Cam Rising's going to play.
And Florida's a team that just the talent's there. It's year 2 of Billy Napier. I think they could F around and have themselves a decent season.
Yeah.
That being said, it's going to be tough. I mean, they have a lot of tough games on the schedule, and you start off the season in Utah. It's going to be tough, but they're up there. But I mean, a lot of the teams that you put on there are up there. I think Maryland too. We never talk about them. I mean, Tolly is what, year 4 there?
It feels like he's been there forever.
And
if you remember, I had Maryland in this group last year.
You did, and you were high on Talia last year.
Yeah, and they did go over their win total, but not very far. But I think they're good.
I mean, I said this last episode. I think TCU is going to be better than people think they are. I think UCF. I know, Jack, you're with me. I think Louisville is going to be better. I know they're highly hyped, but I think they're actually going to buy into it. I think Wisconsin, but I think everybody thinks Wisconsin's going to be good, right? Or better.
Yeah, I think people are realizing that.
People are really high on that.
You look at what Wisconsin's got coming back and their schedule. I mean, they're going to be really good.
I think Arizona. Katie. Arizona is a team that I'm really excited about. Katie?
Dumb bitch.
What? Why'd you call me a dumb bitch?
Because you just...
Brandon, we're doing the Pac-12 episode right now, so why don't you just go ahead and say it?
You said you were going to spoil yours. You said you were going to spoil mine. Go ahead, Katie.
I think maybe Clemson. People think they're going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be good like Clemson standard. Jack said a lot last episode, but for me, maybe the ACC... It's still Dabo. It's still Clemson. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I think they can run through the conference. I know I'm high on Florida State, but Clemson's not something to sniff your nose up at. Turn your nose up at.
No, I like sniff your nose up at better. I like that a lot. So we just turned a new phrase there. All right. Y'all want to dive into the Pac-12?
Can I talk about the Bo Nix Heisman thing now, or should we talk about it when we talk about Oregon?
What is there to talk about with it?
Why are people acting like it's weird that that's there? Did you not see that?
I think it's weird as fuck. Why are they doing that? Why is it in New York City? I hate it's like goes back to the New York City's the capital of college football. It's like why? Like why you put a billboard up? I just think it's so
awesome.
dumb.
I think it's awesome. It's dumb, but it's awesome.
I gotta take inside that. Heisman campaign, official Heisman campaigns by schools are maybe the dumbest thing we spend money on in college football.
It's so dumb. It's worse than like some PR packages that brands send out.
Players have one Heisman campaign. That's the way they play on Saturday. They got 12 times to go out and give a speech, and they give that speech, and then we decide if they're the Heisman. Nothing that school does ever is going to sway anybody.
I 100% agree with you. However, I do. So when Katie sent it in the group text and I realized how close it was to my apartment building, I had to go see it because I was like, I have to believe that this is photoshopped because it looked so new and so pretty. Why would they be doing this? I love it. Does it sway any voters? Absolutely not. How many voters are walking up and down Park Avenue? Not very many. But for Bo Nix, that's cool as fuck. You know, Brandon, if you had your poster BFW in New York City on the side of a building, you'd love that shit.
There is a BFW poster on the side of the building in New York City.
Where?
You wouldn't know. It's in the street. It's there though. I promise you.
No,
it's up in the Bronx.
It's too far from your apartment. You're not going to be able to.
It's up in the Bronx, right?
It's over in the. It's in the 7th borough. It's over there.
Okay. No.
Wait.
New Jersey.
So what's the 6th borough?
Huh? It's before the 7th. It's the 6th. Don't even stop in the 6th. Just go.
If you can give me like the cross streets or something, I'd love to go see that it's real.
There actually are no. It's not on a street per se.
We've gotten Heisman campaign packages here for players that didn't even make all conference teams. Like it's I'm saying not just all conference first teams. No, all conference teams. First, second, third. Stop wasting your money on it.
Yeah, if you consider college football, and a lot of discussions in college football are about money and this and that, and they want to go to this conference because of money and that conference because of money. How much does a billboard in New York City cost? It's got to be $500,000. Like it's got to be $250,000. Like it's got to be a shit ton of money,
especially on Park Avenue.
That one's hand painted too. Every year it's hand painted. Really cool. It's not a tarp.
It's very cool.
Wait, that was hand painted?
At least because I grew up around the corner from that. Every single, as far as my knowledge, that's always people are up and down painting.
How long is that one going to be up? Do you like
for a while? God damn!
I'll say 3 months.
if it's hand painted, it better
fucking be up there.
Those ones
are up there for 3 to 6 months.
See, I definitely. I mean, I think it's funny. It's easy to make fun of course, because it's Bo Nix too. It's really fucking cool.
One last news note before we fully get in. This is heartbreaking to Brandon, but the Vanderbilt Stadium is not ready. It is that thing.
Can I stop you right there?
I love this. I love it. I love it.
Hold on. Why are you trying to prescribe Vanderbilt to me?
Because you don't remember the basement conversation?
Like I think I might have said one time that they're going to go over their win total.
No.
Like I said, they're going to win the national title.
No, last 2 episodes ago, I compared Vanderbilt to what conference?
Virginia Tech.
No, yeah, Virginia Tech. I was like, where would you put them compared to Vanderbilt? And you're like, no, they'd be ahead of the Virginia Tech, Boston College, that bottom dwellers. I'm
it was the ACC preview.
And I said, no, Vanderbilt's below them. Then we talked about the Big 12 again, or last week, which everyone should go back and watch that episode. And then you were saying that Vandy is better than Cincinnati.
I do think Vanderbilt's better than Cincinnati.
There's been a reoccurring theme with you with Vanderbilt with Jack, and then I double down with how you made fun of me. I'm going to say this every episode that Vanderbilt comes up. You made fun of me for saying Tennessee was going to beat them last year.
That's not true. That's just lying.
It is.
You were pregnant. You didn't even have a you had pregnant.
Don't you gaslight me. Don't you gaslight me.
But their stadium is not ready.
It's crazy.
And not close. Like, some bleachers. It's just torn up.
It's like all business Pete's running it.
Here's the thing, though. I think their capacity this year will be 29,000 people. That's plenty for them. They don't need very much more than
What's
that.
going to be ready first, Brandon? The Chicago office or Vanderbilt's football stadium?
You know what? I'm not turning on Alvin Pete here. I'm depending on Pete to get studios ready for myself. So I
No. You're doing fine. I just that's the competition.
I had the wrong notebook there.
But yeah, Pac-12.
Pac-12.
All right. Before we talk about the individual teams, we do have to talk about the conference as a whole because it's been in the news. And obviously, this is our last hurrah pretty much with the Pac-12, as I think 4 of them are heading to the Big Ten and 4 of them are heading to the Big 12. That's right? USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon are heading to the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah are headed to the Pac-12, headed to the Big 12, leaving the foursome of Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State to figure things out. It really is a shame. Now, I got 2 parts to this. Before the demise of the Pac-12 is a shame because there is a lot of history there, and I hate it. I don't like it. It's a shame because they're disbanding really as they're getting strong again. Like Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley come in, Kalen DeBoer comes into Washington. Like, the conference is as strong this year as it's been in the last 10, 15 years, ever since the USC heyday. So it's sad. However, there's one element that I don't think anybody else has said. Pac-12 fans, if you lament the demise of your conference, maybe you should have cared a little bit more when you had the conference. I think of when Stanford beat Oregon a couple of years ago and there were 7 people in the stands. I think of the UCLA pictures before kickoff of their games and say, oh, yeah, there's a lot to do out here. No, if you've got college football in town, that's what you need to be doing. That's like, look in Austin, Texas. There's a lot to do in Austin, Texas, full every week. All right, there's a lot to do in Athens, Georgia, full every week. I understand they won national titles, but if Pac-12 had fans, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of really bad decisions made.
Tons.
By people that are not elected, but put on within the presidency of the conference that were just, I'm sure there could even be a very long form article or book or hour-long documentary written about it that was just put them in such a bad position from TV rights perspective. And then that even showed the Oregon and Washington, it appears, were trying to let the Pac-12 figure it out, and they just couldn't, and they haven't been able to figure it out for the past 2 decades. They had they didn't have the lead, but they were right there. Early 2000s, they were there, and they fumbled hard.
Yeah, they fumbled it, and there's also the element of it was like the Pac-12 was waiting for somebody else to figure it out for them, and it just wasn't happening. It all comes down to the TV deals. It all comes down to the linear rights and the Apple TV. It was too little, too late. And it sucks because if you're a Pac-12 fan who actually cared about college football, and you're especially a fan of one of those 4 teams that's left behind, you're sitting there just like, why did our conference not care about our conference? That's the biggest thing to me. The conference itself did not care enough about the Pac-12 to keep those teams from leaving. And then once the cookie crumbled, it was like, oh shit, too little, too late.
But I think the leadership kind of reflected the fandom and everybody out there. It's just a passionless part of the country for college football. It is. It's passionless. Do you think fans in the Southeast would have allowed Greg Sankey to make these bad decisions? No, he would have been out on his ass quickly. They would have said, no, we got to get a better leader in here. The Big Ten, they would have freaked out.
But I think that's what's happening now at the Pac-12. They're realizing how bad the leadership actually was. I know it's too late, but if they didn't know how bad the deal was until it all came out.
But they knew how bad their president was before this new president. They're like a college football program that kept making bad coaching hires. Larry Scott was a bad hire. They realized how bad he was. This new guy, bad hire. Like they just kept making bad hires. Like UConn did it in football. They hired Pasqualoni, bad hire. Bob Diaco, bad hire. Brought back Ramsey Etzel, bad hire. Now the program has to be rejuvenated. The Pac-12, unfortunately, is dead.
Right. And the death of the Pac-12 has really been the death of regionality in college football, because it was already kind of starting to happen with UCLA and USC leaving. And that was the beginning of it for real, when you started realizing these West Coast teams were going to have to be traveling all the way to the East Coast. But now that the Pac-12 has completely fallen apart, all these teams are traveling all over the country, and the regionality of the sport has just disappeared. It's just gone.
All right, let's talk about the league from this year and this year only. We're not going to talk about who's going where. We're not going to talk about the future. We're not going to talk about bad decisions. On the field this year, what's it going to look like? First of all, I think it's the best QB league in the country.
Easily.
I think your success in the Pac-12 depends on two things: how good your quarterback is, and can you stop the pass. It is the best passing league in America. I'm about to read you some stats, okay? And they're a little shocking. First of all, quarterbacks, you got Caleb Williams, the defending Heisman winner, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Cam Rising. Then you got Jaden DeLora at Arizona's very good. You got Cam Ward at Washington State, who's pretty good. You got DJ Uyunglele entering the conference. Drew Pine at Arizona State was not bad. Shedeur Sanders is entering at Colorado. UCLA is going to have a talented quarterback, whoever they go with. Like, it's a quarterback league. Now, I'm going to read the passing defense ranks for every team in the Pac-12 last year, which shows you how important it is to defend the pass and how hard it is in that conference. Here are the Pac-12 defensive ranks nationally for pass defense. Stanford ranked 40th. Arizona State 78. Cal 122. Arizona 106. Washington State 113. UCLA 116. Oregon, good team, 101. Oregon State 64. Utah 60th, good team. USC, good team, 111th. Washington, good team, 99th. This is the hardest pass defense league in the country. The best pass defense was Stanford, technically, but really they were just best pass defense because you could run all over them. Nobody defends a pass. Everybody's got a quarterback. It's probably the most exciting football league in 2023, in my opinion.
I completely agree. When you look back at 2022, I believe 6 teams finished in the top 20. And all of those teams, until the very, very end of the regular season, were still somehow in the mix to win the Pac-12 and then could potentially be in the college football playoff. Now, the quote that I feel like everybody uses all year, it's in magazines, we've said it, they cannibalize each other. They truly do. And I know that every league technically does that, but the Pac-12 is a prime example, not just from the stats that you just read, but because there's every single week, it's kind of a toss-up of who's going to beat the other team, and then is that going to have an impact on the college football playoff? That happened last year, and I think it's going to happen again this year. The biggest question is, are any of those teams that you just mentioned going to have a better defense? Because we know how good their quarterbacks are. How much better can the defenses get in 2023 to take that next step to have a Pac-12 team in the playoff?
All right, so I'm going to start with a bullet point on the teams. I'll just go quickly through the teams. I'll try to go quicker than I've gone through other conferences. We start with USC, who has the best player in America. USC, who turned everything around last year, was this close to the playoff, didn't quite get there, lost to Utah twice, lost to Tulane at the end of the year. But Caleb Williams, 4,537 yards, 42 touchdowns, won the Heisman last year. Probably is as strong a second-year Heisman candidate as we've had in a long, long time. As long as he's healthy, he's going to put up monster numbers. They brought in last year it was Jordan Addison they brought in from Pitt. This year it's Dorian Singer from Arizona. They got Taj Washington. Now their offensive line's kind of being rebuilt through the transfer portal, but USC's all about one question: is their defense going to suck or not? Because if it just kind of sucks, they can be in the playoff. If it's just mediocre, they can be in the playoff. But if it sucks to the level it sucked last year, the last 2 games against Utah and Tulane, they gave up 93 points combined. 46 and 47 to Utah and Tulane. They got transfers all over. Can they defend the pass? Can they do these? I think the schedule's a little bit tougher this year than it was last year. Notre Dame's going to be better, and they got to go to Notre Dame. They have a 4-week stretch, actually a 5-week stretch, and one game I'm going to skip. They got a 5-week stretch, October 14th at Notre Dame, October 21st, Utah. Then they have a gimme, and then it's November 4th, Washington, and at Oregon, November 11th. 4 out of 5 games determines their season. Lincoln Riley going into year 2. What do you guys think?
It's the question we're going to ask a million times. Is the defense better or not? And I think that this offense, no matter what, is going to be great with Caleb Williams. He could have any receiver at this point as long as they're decently talented. He's one of those guys. I do think the defense is going to get better. I feel like it can't be worse than it was last year. I know I say that and I could eat crow, but that is the worst tackling I've ever seen in my entire life, especially against Utah at the end of the season. It has to get better. I know everybody said that at OU every year with him too, but how can it get worse?
Okay, Jack, I want to ask you this, because you just said they knew they got stuck hiring bad people, right? The Pac-12 got stuck hiring bad people. How long is Lincoln Riley going to go on in his life with Alex Grinch as his defensive coordinator? because it hasn't worked yet. It hasn't worked. I don't know if he's in love with the man. I don't know what it is. It has not worked. He has not produced a championship level defense.
I would say some of those Oklahoma defenses at the end turned out to be not as bad as they were when we saw them at their highest level.
I think in the Big 12 that's true, but then when they would play an elite team in the playoff, they would give up 60 points.
I do think the defense this year is going to, I mean, not to ruin my college football playoff pick, allow them to get to the level that they want to get to when they hired Lincoln Riley. And that has a lot to do with the defense doesn't have to be that good. But you are correct. It's a completely different question when they get to the playoff. And I think we'll know a lot about it.
Well,
after that run.
Lincoln Riley did say, now I'm sure he said this in other ways when he was at Oklahoma, but he did say when he chose not to fire Alex Grinch after the season that he's going to take a more hands-on approach himself this year for the defense. I don't know how much that's going to matter, but I mean, that to me says Alex Grinch is there. Maybe he knows where some bodies are buried, but hey, buddy, you're not making all these calls. I'm going to do it because you suck so bad at it.
You know, Jack, you just said something I find very interesting. You said the defense doesn't have to be that much better. I think it might. Like, I understand that their offense is going to cover a lot of problems and their offense is going to score a lot of points. But in this league and with this schedule, like I just said, there's a 4-week stretch there where they're going to play at Sam Hartman. They're going to play Cam Rising. They're going to play Michael Penix Jr. They're going to play on the road at Bo Nix. Like, they're going to be playing elite quarterbacks every single week. They're going to have the opportunity to give up 50 points every week in this league. And I think they're going to have to improve a lot. I don't want to spoil it, but I have USC in a category, and it's not the one you guys are going to be thinking.
I would say that it does. I think if they're a top 50 defensive unit, they're in the college football playoff without a doubt. And
all right. Katie, you have anything to say about USC?
Yeah, I think that there's been so much commotion in the offseason with Alex Grinch. It's very clear for people in the program what needs to be fixed. With the answer of not having to be better, I think the defense at least has to be better enough to keep the offense healthy and keep them off the field. Like, if Caleb Williams has no rest, he's going to get injured and we're screwed. I disagree. I think I have a little more faith in USC turning around this year.
All right. So let's move on to defending champion Utah. And there's one question because Utah is Utah. I think they're one of the most consistent programs in the entire country. They're going to have a good physical defense every year. They're going to have athletes in the defensive backfield. They're going to be well coached. I think it's a top 10 coach in the country, Kyle Whittingham. They got one 3-word question. Cam Rising health. If he's not healthy coming into the season, it might not be good because their first 2 games are not easy. Their first 2 games are Florida at home, SEC talent coming to visit you, and then at Baylor. Like, the cheese could slide off the cracker immediately for them if he's not healthy.
They also have Oregon State, USC, and Washington all on the road. I mean, they have a brutal schedule this year.
Yeah, it ain't fun. Like, it ain't fun. And now if he's healthy, if he's ready to go, I think this is a team that's going to compete for the Pac-12. If he's not ready to go, like I said, quarterback league. If you ain't got the quarterback, you're shit out of luck in this league. And like, I think if he's not healthy and doesn't play up to 100% for 12 games, they could lose 4 games.
Yeah, the backup is Bryson Barnes that we've seen like in the Rose Bowl games. I think he played that Thursday night game against Washington State last year. He's serviceable, but Cam Rising really takes that team to the next level. They do return the 13th most production in the entire country. So, I mean, but that number would drop significantly if Cam's out. So you're right. If we had to list our biggest questions about the Pac-12 as a whole, Cam's at the top of it. And I want him to be healthy. What is he, a super senior? I mean, imagine coming back to the 8th, 9th, 10th year of college for Cam Rising, and he can't play. He's a college football legend. But this team is gonna be good.
Well, they have a good defense.
But you are right that, man, like, we could look up and how's Utah 8-4? you know.
They are one of those teams, though, that in the Pac-12, when you talk about defense, I mean, I know you just read off the past defense, but their defense, and I think they're returning almost everybody from last year. That's the team. That's the part of this team that seems so different, I think, than a lot of their Pac-12 teams. Like, yes, Cam Rising is very good and he's there, but you know that defense is going to be stout every single week and not have the holes that some of these other teams with great quarterbacks have.
Who I compare Utah with as a program is Kansas State. Kansas State wins the Big 12 every now and then because they are a tough team in a non-tough league. Utah is a tough team in a traditionally non-tough league. That means they're going to be near the top every year because they're just so physical. Like that game against USC, the championship game, there was men against boys. The USC didn't want to tackle them, didn't want to get near them. They were just getting beat up, and that's what Utah does to you. All right, moving on. The Washington Huskies. Everybody made a lot of noise last year with good reason. Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma to USC. Kalen DeBoer did the exact same thing at Washington that Lincoln Riley did at USC. The exact same thing. Went 10-2, had a Heisman candidate quarterback. They went from 21.5 points a game 2 years ago to 39.7 last year. Michael Penix is an all-time story in college football. Nobody would have ever thought this would have happened. 4,600 yards, 31 touchdowns last year. But they did have some flaws on defense. They couldn't defend the pass. Front seven looks pretty good this year. They got one of the best receivers in the country. But how far along is their defense going to come this year? They have a 3-game stretch. November tells a story for this team. They might be undefeated on November 4th when they go to USC. They got at USC, Utah, at Oregon State in a 3-week stretch. If they go 2-1, I think this could be a playoff team.
They're definitely in the conversation for me as well. I mean, the obvious answer of why Kalen DeBoer wasn't near as talked about is because he didn't leave Oklahoma the way Lincoln Riley did. But I think that's better for him because he was, unless you were really paying attention to Washington or paying attention to the Pac-12 race, you weren't really paying that closely of attention to Washington like everyone was with USC. So the problems they had last year could be more quietly fixed, I guess. Like with USC, if they come out at the beginning of the season and their tackling looks like shit and their defense looks like shit, like everyone's going to have that opinion. Washington with Michael Penix Jr. can kind of have this, we quietly win every single week, and then you look up in November and you're like, holy shit, Washington could sneak in the playoff.
What? Yeah, but
and their schedule eases them into the pool too. Like they should win their first 6 or 7 games.
I don't know about that. I think there's
at Michigan State that scares you.
Like, I mean, the first game of the year against Boise State is not the easiest game in the world. Then Michigan State on the road is not the easiest game in the world. And then the 6th game of the year is Oregon at home.
Yeah.
If you told me they lost 2 of those, I wouldn't be flabbergasted. It would definitely, they'll probably be favored in all 3, or at least the Oregon game will be kind of a closely lined game. But, that Michigan State game is that will be a real test to see if this is a good team or a team that is, not really going to be in the college football playoff mix.
Definitely. I mean, if they lose to Michigan State, Michigan State's horrible.
I don't know if they're horrible.
I think they're going to be really bad this year.
It's a bad loss.
If they lose to
I
Michigan
wouldn't
State,
say for a playoff perspective,
Yes.
yeah, but
It is on the road. I mean, he's right about that. I mean, like it's a non-conference opponent on the road in an unfamiliar spot. That's tough in its own right. And Boise State, the opener against Boise State, like that's not easy in the pool at all. That is a tough game to start. But I do think they're going to handle those, and I think they're going to handle Oregon at home. All right, so we move on to Oregon State. Oregon State, the quietest 10-3 team in the country last year, I think. They went 10-3. They beat Oregon. They have and this is one of the things that I don't think we pay enough attention to. How much of your offensive line are you bringing back? Because a lot of times, I know last year, Wake Forest and Boston College, they were bringing back 0 offensive linemen, and I was like, that won't be a problem. And then their quarterbacks got killed. This year, Oregon State is bringing their entire offensive line back. They're bringing back Damian Martinez, one of the best freshman running backs in the country. Their question simply, is DJ that guy? Because they couldn't throw the ball last year. They were, I think they were 99th in passing offense. They could not throw it. They could run it, and they could beat you up, but they couldn't throw it. If DJ can kind of throw it, look out. The ceiling is very high here.
They're another team in the Pac-12 that the defense was actually a really good defense. And I believe they brought back most of their defensive production. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know that on the defense, they're going to continue to play well. It's the question of DJ, and I know we can go back and forth with that. Actually, now that I say this, I think their defense lost a lot of people. They
lot.
lost a lot of people.
The
Their
defense-
offense brought a bunch back. Their defense lost a lot.
It returns. They rank 100th in returning production.
So it's the opposite, right? But their defense was really good last year.
They brought back a lot on the defensive line, but the back seven is just all new. They brought in a transfer, but last year they were very good defense, top 30. And
so they lost all those guys. I knew, their defense.
That's what's gonna be the biggest question for them.
You don't think DJ's the bigger question?
Defense is the biggest question, in my opinion.
Katie?
92nd in returning on defense.
So they lost all those breakout guys.
Well, here's the thing, Jack. The running game is so good and strong that they're probably gonna be able to score points without DJ being great. But in this league, you're gonna get into shootouts with Michael Penix, and you're gonna get into shootouts with Bo Nix. I think DJ has to be. I think he has to be a top 5 quarterback in that league for them to be a top 3 team in that league. I don't think he can be average and them be at the top of that league.
That's fair. I think his upside is top 3 in the league, so it's going to be. You're right. He has to show up. I mean, they'll be a 6-6 team if DJ's bad. Yeah, 100%, or even worse.
All right, the Oregon Ducks, who, by the way, have been in the playoff hunt in November 3 of the last 4 years. The offense was great last year. Now, this is a team that has the opposite of what I just said about Oregon State. Entirely new offensive line here. They do have one of the best running backs in the country nobody talks about, Bucky Irving. They went out and got not only – everybody's got transfers. Louisville, Oregon State, everybody's got transfers. Oregon went out and got high-quality transfers. They got 3 transfers on defense from the SEC alone. They got Ole Miss defensive back. They got South Carolina defensive lineman. They got a guy from Alabama. And then they got an Iowa linebacker. Like, they went out and got high-quality defensive transfers. They should get a lot better defensively this year. Can they keep Bo Nix healthy, and can the offense continue to go? Because they lost the offensive coordinator who's now at Arizona State.
I was going to ask you, do you think Kenny Dillingham that loss is going to be really obvious?
I don't think it's an insignificant loss. I think it could be a quite significant loss, especially when you consider, week 2, they're at Texas Tech. We talked about Texas Tech last time. That's a minefield of a trip right there. That's a dangerous ass trip right there. And if they lose that, your margin for error is gone. You still got to go to Washington. You still got to go to Utah. You still play USC. You still play Oregon State. Like, the schedule's not easy. I tend to think they're going to be good because Oregon's always good, but I consider them for most disappointing team. Like, I think the margin for error here is thin.
It's very thin.
I disagree. I think there's a lot of teams we've already even discussed that could be
right.
Like, I think Oregon's better than Washington. I think they're better than Oregon State.
You think Oregon's better than Washington?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like when we do these, we kind of spoil our predictions, which is fine. I also think that. Like, I'm
I want to have that discussion. I want to have that discussion. Y'all both think? Katie, do you think Oregon's better than Washington? You don't know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. Yes.
You two think Oregon's better than Washington? All right.
I think Oregon's a safer pick.
You think Oregon's like a safer pick? Like, if you had to pick?
If I had to pick, I'd pick Oregon, but I don't want to make an official call.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Washington a lot more than I like Oregon.
I think Oregon in year 2, the biggest thing that can take a step forward is their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They ranked 90th last year. That really should have been, obviously, with Dan Lanning. I do agree with you on Kenny Dillingham, but you bring in Trayshawn Holden, Bucky Irving's great, and Bo, I think, really took a step forward. I'm concerned about the offensive line and whatnot, but this is a really, really talented team, and I think they could be a really, really good team.
I feel like we talked about this so much last year, and it's still being talked about, because even when I posted the video of Bo Nix yesterday, you had people arguing about it in the mentions. What happened with them last year against Georgia just absolutely clouded the rest of the season for them, one way or the other. So if you're an Oregon fan, you look up at the end and you're like, that didn't even matter. Well, yes, it does matter, because if you're playing a team and you get killed the way that you did, it does. But they were so good throughout the season, but so many people just threw them out because of the way that they played in the opener. And I think that Bo Nix, as somebody hand up to God, made so much fun of him at Auburn. He was so fucking good last year. And He had some. I mean, he wasn't perfect. Obviously, he wasn't even in New York, but he was really good.
Second highest completion in FBS.
I mean, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and this is again coming from a place of not liking the kid. It's not like I'm talking about Caleb Williams that I talk about all the time. So when I look at him, I like him better than Michael Penix, and Michael Penix was very good, but I think that he's a better quarterback. I like Dan Lanning as a head coach, and then knowing what they're bringing back, I think they're a better team than Washington. I do. They got like all the transfers you just mentioned. I think they did better in the transfer portal.
I think this is good. I think it's a lot more interesting when we disagree than when we agree. Okay. So I think when we get to the conference champions and disappointing teams, we're going to have a lot of different opinions here. So I like that. I'm not as high on Oregon as you guys are. So, but we'll move on. All right. Now, in a league where everybody's sure about quarterback and everybody knows what they got and everybody has pretty good quarterback, UCLA is probably the fly in the ointment there this year. They got guys. I mean, they got a 5-star freshman who might be, maybe we'll see him this year as the guy. Maybe we won't. Maybe the transfer or Chase Garbers will be the guy. Maybe he won't. I don't know. But UCLA has got talent outside of that. They got one of the best, most exciting transfers. Carson Steele, running back, ran for 1,500 yards last year at Ball State. He's going to have a chance to really be good. And Chip Kelly, listen, whether the quarterback is a known name or not, Chip Kelly is going to get production out of quarterback, right? But the question with them is the same as the question with almost every team in this league. Can they defend? They're probably going to score points. Can they stop teams from scoring points? Because everybody in the league can score points. Can you keep somebody to 30? If you can keep your opponent under 30 every week in the Pac-12, I think you can be a really good fucking team.
I think that the thing with UCLA outside of, I mean, DTR, he got his flowers last year, but I think you're going to see how much they really miss him. I think they're really going to miss Zach Charbonnet. I feel like he's a guy that was brought up when we talked about running backs every single week. Losing those two guys, like, yes, I understand how important the defense is going to be, but I think the bigger question for UCLA is, can they replace that production? And I don't think they can right away.
All right. Their schedule is also, I think, quite friendly. They got to go to Utah and to Oregon State and to USC, whatever that means. But they miss Oregon and they miss Washington. Like they have a decently friendly schedule compared to everybody else. All right.
But their offense is fascinating because they bring back a lot on defense, but you're eighth in returning production on a defense that stunk. So what does that really mean? Hopefully you can take some steps forward. But I mean, you could have 6 transfer portal guys in on the starting offense, and then the 7th of 18-year-old 5-star quarterback. So how does Chip Kelly handle that? We'll see. They're a fascinating team, man. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think the LA battle this year, it will be just as fun as last year's.
You do?
Well, I'm just talking in general, game to game.
No, definitely. I'm saying I think that last year was so great because of the quarterbacks. Now, I think
Dante Moore has a chance to really be something special. If Colin Schlee is the guy, that'll be fun as well. But or Chase Garbers, who's been there for a while.
Yeah, Colin Schlee. I also meant I should have said him. Now, this is where in the Pac-12, as we go forward, I think you take a line. I really do think you draw a line. Everybody above this line that I mentioned, Washington, USC, Utah, Oregon State, Oregon, and UCLA, not as much, but I'm going to slide them in there too. I think all of those teams can be really fucking good, can win 10 games, 11 games, and challenge for the conference title. Everybody below that line, I don't think can get there. Doesn't mean they're going to be bad teams, because I think there's a couple of teams that could be really surprising and good here. I guess we can go ahead and have the Colorado discussion right here. Because you got Washington State, Arizona, Cal, Stanford, Arizona State, a couple of really bad teams there. Let's talk Colorado here. It's the most changed team I can ever remember in college football. It's the most night to day change I have ever seen. They were dead. They were nothing. I think if you ask a lot of casual college football fans who Colorado's coach was last year, they're not going to be able to tell you. If you ask them who the quarterback was, they're not going to be able to tell you. And that's not taking shots at any college football fans. That's just they were nothing. They were 1-11. They were garbage. Overnight, they become the talk of the country when they hire Deion Sanders. Deion, Coach Prime, goes out there, changes the roster, says he's bringing Gucci luggage. Frankly, Deion did write a lot of checks they're going to have to cash on the field.
By the way,
Well,
it's Louis luggage. Get it right.
What did I say? Gucci?
Yeah, it's Louis.
Louis, excuse me. Louis.
Get your
It's
designers
Louis.
right.
It is Louis luggage. I apologize to Coach Prime, but he is outspoken. He's a huge name. He has changed the roster. He's brought in 5 stars. He's brought in his son. He's brought in talent. He's brought in a good coaching staff. They are. I don't know how good they're going to be, but I know how talked about they're going to be, and it's going to be top 5 talked about in the country.
It's going to be every single week, regardless of who they're playing, eyes from all over the country, right into Boulder. And their schedule is not easy. And I think that's when, when you really break it down for 2023, when you talk about them going to have to play TCU right away, then Nebraska, like they don't even get like the cupcake non-conference games that a lot of teams would love to have in this situation. At some point, and I can't remember, Katie, you might remember what week it was last year, but at one point, whenever it was like which teams in the country haven't won a game, we were well into the season, and it was Colorado and Colorado State. Like the state of Colorado could just not get their shit together, could not win a football game. And that has completely changed, not just because of Deion, because like I mentioned earlier in the episode, it's an entirely new team. It's not just a few guys coming with him from JSU. It's not just a couple transfer guys. This is an entirely new football team with an entirely new culture and attitude. And all the attention is right on it because of all those things.
Well, there's also an element here. They've got one player that you can't put on any top 10 list right now. If you said the top 10 players in college football, you got to say Caleb Williams and Brock Bowers and certain guys throughout the country. If 12 games in the season, I said Travis Hunter is one of the best players in the country, the most exciting players in the country, I don't see that as a long shot. No. You can't put him there now, but they might have some of the most exciting young players in America. Jack, I know you're a big Travis Hunter guy, right?
Yeah, I like Travis Hunter a lot. I'm very low on this team. I don't really see many wins on the schedule. I think I don't even think we'll be talking about them. Like, you think we'll talk about Colorado, Oregon State in November? No shot. I think there'll be multiple or double-digit underdogs in that game, and maybe Deion and this team will find a win late in the season. But I struggle to see them getting to a bowl game. Not even just struggle. I straight up don't see it. I mean, I could even, there's 2 to 3 games you could really circle as them winning?
Yeah, and I've already said it, but it's a very good league. It's a good league. It's a tough league. And he's got to walk in there with an entire transfer team. I will disagree with you about one thing. I think whether they go 2-10 or 10-2, I do think we'll be talking about them a lot. And I don't think that's just us. I think a lot of people will be talking about them a lot. I think at some point Deion's going to say something that's going to grab SportsCenter headlines. He's going to do something that grabs SportsCenter headlines. And I think they're going to be – and I think that's strategically the smart thing for him to do, because his tenure at Colorado isn't about this year. No. It's not. It's about year 2, year 3, year 4. And he's transitioning the roster now to be ready for year 2, year 3, year 4. So I think we'll be talking about them. Will they be good? No, I don't think so. I mean, it's just too much.
There's also, the element of people will be talking about him if they've lost every single game, because they'll be talking about, well, was he a bad hire? Is he a bad coach in the Power 5? What is it going to look like when he's in the Big 12? I do think he's constantly going to be talked about regardless. But I just, it's a very good league. They have, I know he just played at Jackson State, but they have one of those quarterbacks that you feel like you're not going to put them on the level of Bo Nix, Michael Penix, obviously Caleb Williams at this point. But would it surprise you if Shedeur is up there in the conversation for the league next year because of the talent that he seems to have? No, but it's a very tough schedule. It's very hard.
All right. Moving on quickly. A couple of teams. I got 3 teams. First, Stanford and Cal, I think, are bad. I think they're bad football teams. I think they're the worst teams in the league. We'll probably talk about them a little at the end. I think Washington State, Arizona, and Arizona State all have enough to get excited about for those fan bases. Arizona State has a brand new head coach. Drew Pine was not terrible last year. I think they got things to build on. I like Arizona a lot. I think that's a good coach. I think he's recruited at a high level. Jaden DeLora is a quarterback nobody talks about. He's pretty good. I like Arizona a lot. They got 7 defensive transfers, including Justin Flo from Oregon.
That defense was just so bad last year.
It was garbage. they like everybody else, they went out and got a bunch of transfers. Their defense is going to be 70% transfers this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
is it good or not?
What that's but I do agree with you with Jaden Delora. And then the wide receiver, what's his name?
Well, the guy their best wide receiver transferred to USC.
But then to Toria, right? To Toria McMillan, and then
wasn't it Jacob Cowing's the one that's gone?
No, Cowing stayed.
Singer, right?
Singer left. And
so Cowing is still there.
Cowing's still there, and then he's a senior, and then Montana Lemanuis Craig was the guy that went off in the Colorado spring game and then left. He's on Arizona. So the offense should be fun. Like they'll have a lot of fun games.
Do you like Jed Fish?
I think he's very good. Yeah. I like him.
He seems like a great hire for them.
He seems and they seem to like him.
Washington State has 2 new coordinators. Cam Ward was one of the hot names last year coming from Incarnate Word. He was pretty good.
Yeah,
he was pretty good. He keeps you in games. He's going to score points. Once again, can they defend? Their pass D was 113th in the country. If you can't defend the pass, you can't win in this league. They schedule's pretty good. They don't have USC. They don't have Utah. They do play Wisconsin non-conference, so that kind of sucks. And then Cal and Stanford. Cal with an awful offense and a bad defense. And I just wrote down one word for Stanford, and it's gross.
Yuck.
I know they got a new coach.
Woof.
I know they got a new coach, but I don't know how a new coach builds excitement in a place like Stanford because their fans just don't care. They don't. How do you, in NIL era and everything, how do you get players fired up to come play where nobody's going to watch you?
It's crazy because if you look at their roster, they still get recruits.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they get nobody. Like, they have a top 30, top 35 team in terms of recruiting rankings, but you just look at this team and it just looks so gross. I mean, what do you even say about it? It's just
Buzz your girlfriend woof. That's what you say.
Yeah, and the coach they brought in from Sacramento State should give some excitement, but then there's this dark cloud over them. Same with Cal, and I feel really bad. And I mean, who's going to be the quarterback? Justin Lamson or
the quarterback situation at Cal and Stanford are not sexy at all.
Daniels. I mean, it's just these are guys, and then Cal at Stanford.
I don't think you can ever win anything if your quarterback's name is Ashton.
Ashton, and that's a good point. Has Ashton been good at anything athletic? I know there's Ashton Kutcher, who's amazing, but what about athletic? Ashton, Jeffrey, right? No, that's Alshon.
I would say I don't know if I know any other Ashton other than Ashton Kutcher, who is brilliant, by the way, which is something at Cal and Stanford you have to be pretty smart to go there.
I don't know if Ashton Kutcher's brilliant.
I mean, didn't he like buy into Uber and make like billions of dollars way before anybody else?
Ashton,
I don't know.
Ashton Eaton.
This is actually pretty sad. Ashton Doolin, who played football at Malone, he was on the Colts. He tore his ACL today.
Well, Mississippi State had a running back, Ashton Shumpert, once. He was a 4-star recruit, but he was okay. Anyway, there's your teams. There's your league. Now let's get into it. Katie, as always, I forget the list, but I will try to do it. Everybody, who's the surprise team in the Pac-12? Casey, you go first.
I've already spoiled it a bunch, but I am taking Colorado. I would like it on record right now that I feel like with my Pac-12 predictions, people are going to be rolling their eyes, be like, oh, she only ever talks about Colorado and USC. Guess what? I'm going to talk about both of those teams a lot today and throughout the season. I do believe in Colorado a little bit more. I am not saying they are going to be in contention by any stretch of the imagination for the Pac-12. I don't know about even, being bowl eligible in the middle of the season, but I do think they are going to surprise a lot of people and they're going to win some games. Winning more than one is better than last year, and I think people forget that when they look at how bad this team was and what Deion is going to be. So I am taking Colorado, and I am sticking by that, and I will stick by it no matter what.
Katie, who's the biggest surprise team in the Pac-12?
A little bit of a limb. I think I'm going to go with Oregon State. This is a big if, but I think if a new system fits him, there's the pieces. I'm a little worried about there being almost too much of a ceiling. It's a great improvement. You can't really do that 2 times in a row. But that's the one I feel like the most confident about.
Jack, who's the surprise team in the Pac-12?
I'm going to go with UCLA.
Good.
Yeah. I just
four people, four different answers. I like that.
And I really do like Dante Moore, and I do think Chip Kelly's a good coach. The defense scares me, but
Also, Dante Moore is an all-time name for a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree, and at least they're bringing back the bad defense. Like maybe they can take a step forward. But I do think they're a team that people like. We don't talk about them at all. I would even argue there's like teams like Oregon State are talked about more than UCLA coming into this season. And I think that has a lot to do with when you lose a quarterback that's been there forever, like DTR. Hey, like people are kind of down on you. So that's why I'm putting them as my surprise team.
Brandon?
All right, I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats. I like the coach. I like the quarterback. I don't like the fact that they play Mississippi State this year because, I'm having a take here, and then my team has to take the take out. But whatever. I think it's a good team. I think offensively they'll be good. I think the coach recruits at a high level. I like what Jed Fish is doing there. Arizona is my surprise team. Katie Stats, who is the most disappointing team in the Pac-12?
I think it's going to be Washington State. I feel bad for them. It's a bit of the Pac-12. I remember Cameron Ward we were so excited for. I think it's what you said about Oklahoma State. I don't really know what there is to be exciting about that. Just they're going to fall off a bit.
Jack? The most, which one is it? Disappointing team in the Pac-12.
I was going to say something about me, but
what's he doing right now?
He's
Are you trying to show off your biceps or something?
I'm surrender covering.
Yeah, you are.
Well, yeah,
stretching.
He's up, but I'm going to go with Washington.
Washington. All right. Casey Smith, who is the biggest disappointment in the Pac-12?
Oregon State. We are so high on them, and I know they're bringing back a lot. They've got a star running back. I do not believe in DJ. No offense to the guy. I think that the way his reign after Trevor Lawrence happened at Clemson is just a tale of the tape. I do not think he's going to take this team to the next level. They were so good last year that people are assuming that he's going to come in and be that missing link. He lost his job at Clemson. So why do I think he's going to go to Oregon State and take that next step? I don't think they're going to suck. I do not think they're going to be a bad team, but they are the ceiling that they had last year. They're going to be lower than that. And I don't know why people like him so much there.
Once again, four people, four different answers. And I'm about to drop some heat on you bitches. The most disappointing team in the Pac-12 2023 will be the USC Trojans. They have played their way into, after going 10-2 last year, they are a top 10 team preseason. I think that's a little ridiculous. I can't stomach a top 10 team who hasn't proven they can tackle. I'm not saying be a good defense. I'm saying they can't tackle. And I know they went out and got a lot of transfers, but at some point a coach is who he is. And Alex Grinch has never proven he can put a championship defense on the field. He just hasn't. Alex Grinch puts soft defenses on the field, and Lincoln Riley lets it sink his teams. And I don't know why it continues to happen. Their schedule is tougher this year. They got the defending Heisman Trophy winner. They're going to score a lot of points. I think they're probably still going to give up a lot of points. I know they got a bunch of transfers. Bear Alexander, good. They went out and got guys, but they didn't replace the biggest weakness. That's Alex Grinch. I think this is at least a 3-loss team, maybe a 4-loss team. USC is the biggest disappointment in the Pac-12.
Okay.
That was good heat, right?
I disagree, but sure.
Well, you can disagree. That's fine. That's legal.
Well, I know. Everybody roll their eyes right now. I like USC this year.
All right. Who is the coach of the year in the Pac-12? Katie?
I think it's going to be Deion. I think it's regardless of what happens. I think it's just going to be the media presence. People can't keep it out of their mouth. I think, like, right now, I feel comfortable betting on Deion to win coach of the year. I think it's a shoo-in.
I agree. I'm taking Deion. I think he is going to win multiple games. And again, at Colorado, winning one game was the standard last year. Everybody's excited about him, and I think he's a pretty easy choice.
McGuire?
That was weird.
Jonathan Smith. I think DJ's going to have a great year. I'm so high on DJ.
I love that DJ Uiagalelei, or however I feel like it changes all the time, is going to be a topic this year, not at Clemson. Like, I feel like our reoccurring thing every year, we always got one weird one. Oregon State is going to be a weird one for us this year.
Well, I have long said we need to talk Beavers more often.
That is true. You love Beavers.
How long have I been saying that?
You've been saying it.
Can you do a little
Katie,
what if?
Yeah.
What if Cade Klubnik, Garrett Rowell experiment fails? What if DJ looks fantastic at Oregon State, hits it, that Clemson Notre Dame game where we first saw him comes back? Will people start, okay, like big what ifs, will people start pointing back at Dabo saying, you wasted him, you didn't fit the quarterback?
If
I
Cade
think
Klubnik
Dabo
is horrible, yes.
I think Dabo is one of the most untouchable coaches in the country. However, if DJ goes and becomes a stud out there, I think you have to look at the program and like, why isn't Clemson developing quarterbacks anymore? What happened? They used to develop quarterbacks better than anybody.
I completely agree. I think especially because people wanted Cade, way before Dabo actually made the decision. So like they were just like, well, obviously Dabo knows something. If they couldn't figure it out with him after having Trevor Lawrence, I think absolutely. I think that Clemson will be okay.
Yeah, big ifs, but
But yes, no, I think that they'll absolutely blame him for it.
So for Coach of the Year, I have Deion from Katie, Deion from Casey, Jonathan Smith from Jack, and I will continue my Arizona Love Fest. I got Jed Fish as the Coach of the Year in the Pac-12. What else? What Katie?
Player of the Year.
Player of the Year,
I think
champion, and
skip
title game.
We can probably skip Player of the Year.
Well,
right?
no, because he's not going to have him.
I think he will, right?
If they're disappointing, Caleb Williams can't be your Player of the Year, right?
That's up to me.
Okay. Well, I think all three of us have Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's lame, but he's going to be.
My Player of the Year for the Pac-12 is Michael Penix Jr., who will, and I'm going to transition into the next segment, who will lead the 2023 Pac-12 champion Washington Huskies.
Okay.
The Washington
I like
Huskies.
how Jack is just laughing at you.
That's fine. Hey.
No,
that's
I
fine.
love when Jack
I
just
could
like
be
has
wrong.
that little
no,
laugh.
I thought it was just like, it was funny. It wasn't like I'm laughing
No.
at it. It's just more so like, all right.
All right, man, go off.
Fine, yeah. Hey,
I
like it. Yeah, it's good.
He's going to put up gigantic numbers. Penix is. If Caleb Williams gets into a situation where he does lose a couple games, and you laugh, Jack.
No,
and I know Caleb won the
said
Heisman last year, but numbers wise, Penix was right there with him. I mean, he was right there with him. If he were to win the Pac-12 this year, I don't think it's crazy that he could be, because you're going to get the Heisman blowback of Caleb Williams. He's not going to win the Heisman because voters are stupid. Like, even if he's great, he's going to have to live up to that. So yeah, I mean,
I like it. I mean, I like that you're different. I don't agree with it, but I like it.
I mean, Bryce Young won the Heisman 2 years ago. He wasn't the SEC Player of the Year last year. So am I crazy?
No, and I liked
Bryce Young might have been the SEC Player of the Year last year. I don't remember.
I liked the conversation that you had the other day too about Heisman Trophy winners. Like, there's never been a two-time one, and that the level is so high. Bryce Young is the epitome of that example. Because they lost 2 games last year, he wasn't in the conversation. He played better last year than he did the year he won the Heisman. So I do wonder what that's going to look like for Caleb, because he played so well last year. But the Heisman Trophy race last year also just kind of like at the very end, it was, well, who was the best? Like, there wasn't like a guy that like came out and said, "This is my award."
All right, let's double up on this last category. I've already said mine. I got Washington to be the champ, and they beat Oregon State in the conference championship game.
Wow.
Washington, Oregon State is my title game. Washington is my champ. Jack, why are you laughing so much?
That's like what a great way to like send out the Pac-12. Washington, Oregon State in the that would almost be like it almost fits so perfectly. I'm not laughing at you. I just gave Jonathan Smith my Coach of the Year, so definitely possible. I'm going Oregon and USC. USC wins it all, and they go into the playoff. I'm not going to pick them as my national champion, but I do think this is a very big year for USC, and I think it has a lot to they just have a generational quarterback.
I also have Oregon and USC. So Jack, you and I are on that. Whenever you asked Brandon about us liking Oregon more than Washington, I kind of felt like that was going to happen. I also think USC is going to win. I think USC is going to make it in the playoff. And it's the Lincoln Riley love fest. I get that. But I think that if their defense is just serviceable, if they can just fucking tackle, I hope that I don't even know if they do two-a-days anymore, but they better have tackling drills. They better be doing the Oklahoma
Two-a-days
drill.
are definitely like banned.
Especially
in California.
Especially in California.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever.
They only have
the-
one-a-days in California.
Yeah.
do they still do the Oklahoma drill? Is that banned now too?
They probably do that during fall camp because you got to hit at
They
some
all sit
point.
crisscross applesauce and play video games.
They
together.
definitely. Lincoln Riley definitely doesn't.
Whoa. Crisscross applesauce.
You can't say that.
No, wait. No,
Yes, you can.
No, crisscross applesauce is the good way.
Oh.
Right.
Indian style is the bad way.
Okay. Well.
Idiot.
Sorry, we've just been beaten down by the woke agenda.
Oh boy. Every episode we got to get Jack on this. Also, there's no way they call it the Oklahoma drill at USC.
By the way, I was thinking about our episode a few weeks ago when we were talking about like who cleans your windows. And then I was like, who does that? And you were just like, oh, men do. And then I was looking at the World Trade Center today, and they were cleaning the windows on like the, I don't know, 90th floor. And I smiled to myself. I smirked, and I was just like, you know who's doing that job?
A man.
A man.
Is
All right.
USC and Oregon.
Dak has USC over Oregon. Casey has USC over Oregon.
Correct.
Katie, you have
Three-peat, USC over Oregon.
Wow.
Honestly, though, thank you, Brandon. And so USC fans are thanking you, because if he had them too.
Yeah.
We-
Did you see there was a blog written about us
No.
at Barstool? It's like Texas was just picked unanimously to win the Big 12. What can go wrong?
Who wrote it?
I think it was Reeves or somebody, but it's like that's a great blog. Like,
It is a great blog.
He
I mean-
wasn't roasting us. It was just more so it was funny.
Yeah, if you're listening to this or watching this and you didn't see the Big 12, we Big 12, we jinxed ourselves or jinxed. I think it was a reverse jinx. I don't know, but
Big Ev.
Oh, okay. Shout out Big Ev. I think that's a fine, great blog title. He's given Unnecessary Roughness some shine. Shout out Big Ev. He'll be on the show. What?
Oh, you like?
I want to figure out how often in the last times we've had Heisman trophies winners returning, how often they've been the player of the year the next year. I wonder if it's every time. I wonder if it's kind of because I don't think Lamar Jackson was the player of the year in the ACC in 2017. He might have been. I don't think Johnny wasn't the player of the year.
Definitely not.
Why not? Johnny was so good that year.
Yeah,
he
but
had better numbers.
But I feel they lost too many games that year.
An Alabama running back. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Was
I don't remember.
Tebow the SEC player of the
Tebow
year
might have
in
been the
2008?
SEC player. He might have been the SEC player of the year in 2008. He probably was, unless was McFadden still there? No, he was 5, 6, 7, I believe. And I'm just going to look it up and I'm going to figure it out because now I want to know.
What about Bryce Young? Did we figure out if he was last year?
When I said Caleb Williams is not the player of the year, and you guys all said, I'm like, am I going to look
It
stupid?
was Hendon Hooker last year for offensive.
Yeah, so there you go. Bryce Young didn't win it. So I'd like to figure out. I'd like to go back and see how often the returning Heisman guy does not win Player of the Year in this conference. I know Lamar Jackson's one to look at. Johnny, I know John. I don't think Johnny won.
Johnny wasn't.
I
I say that with like the utmost confidence. There's like 2% that I'm wrong, but I think A&M was he had better numbers.
Who won didn't Derrick Henry win the Heisman?
No,
Yes.
it wasn't Henry yet. I got to figure it out. SEC.
Who won the
Player of
Heisman the next year was Lamar.
Oh, Lamar.
No. 2013 was Jameis.
Oh,
Jameis.
I'm just figuring this out right now. So Trey Mason was the 2013 SEC Player of the Year, offensive player.
He ran for what? 350 yards on Mizzou.
He ran for a shit ton, and Auburn did play for a national title.
That is insane. That was 10 years ago.
I mean,
2008. I bet Tebow probably went back to back as far as SEC Player of the Year because 2008 they won the national title.
Darren McFadden in 7 and 6.
So you think
Tebow won the Heisman? Tebow won the Heisman the year he didn't win the SEC Player of the Year.
Who won it that year?
She just said McFadden in 2007.
Oh yeah.
Who won it in 8?
Tebow.
Okay, so there's your answer, Brandon.
Ingram, Cam, Trent.
So if USC makes it to the Pac-12 championship, he's definitely going to be the player of the year, you would think, unless somehow it's their defense that got them there. Which
I mean, Hendon Hooker won it last year, and they weren't going to play for it. That was the injury, but
I'm from a reigning Heisman standpoint, like because
I mean, it's a fascinating question. It's also like a voter fatigue thing.
Right.
Lamar Jackson did repeat as Player of the Year. So the year after he won Heisman, he did win Player of the Year.
And Lamar was Johnny's numbers were really good, but you are right. The team
that year
was
just
good.
he was just
yeah.
2012.
It was just Auburn's year.
And that year for A&M, I mean, if you watch the documentary, you see like he just didn't even give a shit to be there half the time. So
A&M is just such a trash place. So
you're an idiot.
People.
Hey, by the way, I noticed. I keep bringing up your spaces because they're in my head. You did the same thing on your space that you try to do when I'm not here, and you're like, oh, we're not going to talk about A&M very much. You bring up A&M more than anybody else on this podcast.
Do not.
Okay.
You had some great takes on Twitter the other day. I sent you some green screens. Some videos would do really great on the account.
Oh, yeah. By the way,
do them. I'll thank you when you do the video.
You spoiling your Big Ten take made me mad. But whatever.
But he does that when he can't sleep at night. He starts tweeting.
Oh, tweets where I generally don't know when you sleep. Like there were tweets going up at 3 a.m. at 6 a.m.
Well, he told us he's not sleeping recently.
He has migraines.
Last night I had a migraine. So from like 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, this is the truth. I have a deck here on the house. I have two. I have one on the second floor, one on the third floor.
Flex.
I was on the third floor deck, and I was sitting in a lawn chair, and I got comfortable. I laid back, and the migraine I slept on the deck for 2 hours.
That sounds awesome.
Mosquitoes tore me up.
They
tore me. But once I came out of that, the headache was gone. And when the headache goes, the energy comes back, and I couldn't go back to sleep.
I get it.
I just saw a TikTok that for migraines, if you put your feet like in the water.
This is great. No, this is great. No, go.
For like as the hottest water you can tolerate, and you just stand in that.
My migraines have been here 40 years.
Wait, have you ever
just try it? What's wrong with trying it?
Have you ever actually? I'm serious here. When you drink water, do you drink water or no?
I know that I'm supposed to drink water more than
No. But do you put do you put like salt in it and stuff? Like it's not. You should try that. That actually does help.
He doesn't drink water at all.
No, but he can make it flavored.
No, Casey. All right, well, are we here to judge me, or are we here to talk about college football?
No,
college football.
We judge for a living.
Also true. But I was not. I was understanding why you were tweeting through the pain or after the pain, but the fact that you spoiled your Big Ten take made me mad because.
What are we doing right now? I think we're finished.
We are.
Okay.
Okay.
Goodbye. All right. That's unnecessary roughness.